Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we will be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
What's that? It's some kind of man in a dark cloak, riding on a horse alone through the ash.
John.
It is nothing of consequence.
Kay's here too.
Bones.
Got a little Sunni pup.
And I'm ReaderWarrior. And today we're going to be talking about Mistborn, Hero of Ages, Part 1, Legacy of the Survivor, Chapters 1 through 4.
A new beginning! Yay!
A new beginning. We finally have a lot of things to talk about.
Warning, we may be here for the next 12 hours.
It's gonna
Well,
be
we
a lot
did
longer than
elongate
12.
the prologue for like 3, so who knows?
That's what I'm saying.
Well, let's get right into it then, shall we?
Guys, I have a confession to make. I did not read these No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, you're our lead-off
I know.
narrator guy.
Yeah.
You
so,
had to read the first 6 pages and that was it.
So I have chapter 1. And we're returning to everyone's favorite, character from the Mistborn franchise, Fatrin, who we've literally never heard of until now. I just do want to say, first time going through this, I was like, I want to get into the action. Why are we spending time on this guy? But the second time, it's kind of cool to just get a little pocket of the world outside of the main city that we've seen for so long. I like seeing it from his view and kind of getting to go backwards and experience what happened in the outer dominances.
This is something that Sanderson likes to do. I've noticed he likes to start the books with a perspective of someone who is not one of the main characters.
He does.
We can go back to
we've
the
seen
Final Empire.
Yeah, we saw it in Final Empire.
And that's about as much as we can say.
I'm wondering if
I think
this is even mirroring that a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about what actually happens in this chapter. Yes. So, the Titan, in the audiobooks, it sounds like it's saying the Titan, but it's actually a V if you just listen to the audiobooks. So it's the Titan. The Titan is a small farming town that Fatrin kept together after the lords had left the town, currently awaiting on an inbound army of Koloss. The mists are still lingering in the daylight, longer and longer each day. So they're running out of food, and they're about to be attacked by Koloss.
I would also like to mention it is not a farming town, it's a mining town.
I think it might be both, because it definitely is a mining town. You were 100% right about that. They mentioned that multiple times. But
yeah.
I remember there being a line of him telling the Ska to just plant their crops anyways after everyone leaves.
They do have farms to keep the city going, but their main source of their main export was the mining.
I wonder if that has something to do with why Elend is there. I mean, he's not there. Who's there? I don't know what's happening.
Who's Ellen?
So we find out they only have around 1,000 fighting men and another 1,000 who kind of suck. And about 5 malnourished horses. And then suddenly...
I like these odds.
versus Koloss of over 2,000. A man is seen riding to the bulwark on a majestic steed in a dark cloak. Suddenly, the man shoots off his horse like a rocket, dark cloak falling to the side, revealing a beautiful white uniform. He lands on the bulwark, startling the men, and immediately starts ordering people around, which you know, readers of the series, and I've already kind of spoiled it. We all know who this is.
That's my boy.
I specifically thought of your reader, like going through this. I was just picturing like child ReaderWarrior reading this for the first time, like, oh my god, Ellen's badass now.
He's so cool.
He's like Vin.
This is like the most, in my mind, imagining it, it's beautiful. Like seeing the red sky, the ash, and you see this one guy on a horse. Then the boom, pure white angelic rocket shooting up and then landing on it. And then immediately full in charge. He's got the full beard now. Oh, this is the Ellen I knew he would be.
It's gone full
It's so good.
transformation.
Third evolution.
These guys aren't having it though. They're like, who is this guy? We don't know this guy. You know. So Fatrin's brother pulls out a sword.
Wow, look at that big flying weenie.
Was it Austin
He
Powers?
is no longer one.
But he
proves himself.
he's badass enough to just like swipe that guy's sword out of his hands and like catch it though. He's like, oh, good steal. You got any more of that? And he reveals to them that he is Ellen Adventure. We learn that
Your emperor.
Yeah, that was a cool scene. He did just kind of turn and he was like, if you didn't already know, I own you.
Do my little turn on the catwalk.
So, we learn that the soldiers left to join passing armies and left the town mostly defenseless because they took all the weapons except for some that were saved in the Lord's mansion. Fatrin has a difficult time believing Elend is actually Lord Venture, but he's eventually convinced when... Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. First, Elend orders Fatrin to arrange the army and its captains, and he wants to basically teach them how to defeat Koloss because he's been fighting them for a while off screen. At first, Fatrin is kind of fighting him, but Elend gives him this really good out of saying, like, pretending that he actually called for him, and Fatrin goes along with it so that there's a clear transfer of power without him having to seem weak of this guy just coming in and taking over, which he is doing. Elend makes Fatrin swear loyalty if they succeed, and the men gather at Elend's request, and he begins telling them how to fight Koloss. Which, when I was reading this, it was just like, dude, how many of these things have you fought?
Because we gotta remember, back in like book 2, they had no concept of warfare really, and now Ella's just standing there like sword planting. He's like, here's how you do it: 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 4-on-1, depending upon the size. You swarm them, we take them by surprise. Let's go.
It's a cool way of saying they've fought so many battles without saying how many battles they've fought.
Yeah, it's been about a year since the end of book 2. So, like, they've had time for not only Ellen to get used to his powers, but for them to practice fighting the Koloss and learn how best to fight them.
I like the line on when he's like, we are normal men, we can't kill Koloss. And I'm just remembering, Ellen killed a Koloss when he was just a normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It was one of the coolest chapters.
Like, surrounded by them. So it's not like the men are all cheering and jumping after his big speech of how to take out Koloss, but there is the line saying that they look a little bit more confident, a little bit more believing.
Almost like they were rioted.
They must have been, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely what was happening there.
He's gone to the Breeze School of Allomancy, after all.
Some of the things he sums up when he's telling them how to fight the Koloss, I think are just really cool to picture. Like the fact that the Koloss height ranges from 5 to 12 feet. So you just have these massive things lumbering next to these either slightly more massive people-sized things. Like, it would just be awesome to picture. And the way he talks about how they just like don't care if each other are getting killed. So like take on like 5 guys to 1 Koloss or whatever it is. Speaking of 5 to 1, Fatrin and Ellen have this fantastic exchange where he goes, "They outnumber us 5 to 1. Venture nodded. "They're bigger and better trained than us." Venture nodded. "We're doomed then." Venture frowned, black ash dusting his shoulders. "You're not doomed. You have something they don't. Something very important." "What's that?" Venture met his eyes. "You have me."
Yeah,
I love that part.
he's so cool.
Yeah, that should really be read by John St. John. You have me.
Well, and also, like, during that exchange, like, the Vatron is asking him, like, it's like, did you, like, I was expecting you to, like, come with an army. Like, do you have an army coming to help fight these Koloss? And he's like, actually, I have 2.
But I
Yep.
love that he doesn't count himself as one.
He's got 2 armies coming.
I like that too, because having read forward, we know one of them is Vin, right? He's a
Spoiler.
Mistborn too, but
And he's
Yeah.
technically a more powerful Mistborn as well.
Well,
But he's the Emperor first.
and as he's also not as good at being a Mistborn as Vin is.
That's true.
yeah, you can see that when she does show up because some of the stuff she's doing is like advanced to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So just as they're having that discussion, a call to the Emperor is heard. Fatrin be getting mad jealous they already calling Ellen's name and not his. The Koloss are apparently setting up camp within view of the city. Ellen orders an assault on the Koloss against Fatrin's impotent detractions, stating that they need to move against the enemy while they are tired, and the mound won't be enough to protect them. Ellen charges alone towards the Koloss army and is soon followed by hundreds of soldiers along with Fatrim himself. Scene.
I love the visual of this chapter. Every little bit of it feels like an artwork in my head.
Yeah. Also, so I would like to draw attention, just because I really like the start. I always like the first epigraphs because I just think that they really
Oh,
set the tone for the
Never read the
whole, like, book.
epigraph.
Swiggity,
Always read the
fix your mistake,
epigraph.
hurry, before she can do it.
So, Swiggity, if you would like to read it, you can. Otherwise, I will read it.
Go ahead. Unless you want me to.
That I am, unfortunately, the hero of ages. Which just really sets the tone for, I feel like, this book, because it's like, because the book is called Hero of Ages, so you're constantly thinking about who is the hero of ages, because we thought it was Finn,
And then apparently Ruin made it all up.
but apparently Ruin made it all up. But also, like, the start of this epigraph says, I am, unfortunately, the hero of ages. So who is writing these epigraphs? Who is the hero of ages?
Melon.
Isn't it cool?
Melon. He was there the whole time.
Oh my gosh. I love that just like one word can cast everything into a completely different light. Like just that word unfortunately, you're like, wait,
Yes.
why is it unfortunate? Like
Yeah.
And that feels like such a character thing to do. Like, who would actually write like that? Especially because we don't have a voice to this. We've got to rely purely on how do they sound. And I don't remember who I thought it was. Pretty sure I skipped over the epigraphs when I first read this.
I 100% skipped over the epigraphs the first time that I read these books.
I remember who I thought it was, but I won't
So
reveal it now.
silly.
Spoiler.
Why would you skip them? They're so important.
Because I was so ready to continue on with the story that I just didn't really care.
Well, that's not my fault.
Okay, do we have anything else to say about chapter 1?
I love the detail that they now believe Ellen was hiding his Mistborn status the entire time. Because nobody's gonna believe, oh, he just became a full Mistborn.
Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Like, right? Because nobody knows about the beads at the well.
Nope.
Yeah, that's the story. The story is that he was hiding it.
Which, if I was a citizen of Luthadel and found out that he was hiding his power through that Koloss invasion, I'd be pretty upset. Like,
Well, think about what could he have done. They had Vin the Mistborn. She didn't really do anything, and when she did, it was when she went all the way back. Ellen did not.
He wasn't there, right?
well, yeah, he ran away. You're telling me he was a full Mistborn and he just kind of was like, nah.
He went to go looking for help, and he stayed with his troops. That's what a good king does.
He didn't. He ran away to Terrace with the only other capable Mistborn in Luthadel.
Well, they got tricked. Stupid Sazed. You know, it's his fault they're all dead.
Okay.
Sure, let's blame Vin. No.
It was kind of Sazed's idea to like tell everybody to leave, because he genuinely thought that Vin was something special, and like.
But it was Ruin who manipulated all the facts that led to that. We now know.
That's true.
I mean, let's blame the antagonist because they're the antagonist.
I'm not saying Sazed was wrong, because, you know, it seemed like they were all going to die no matter what. So that was like better than, like, at least it was some kind of chance based on what they knew.
Because back then, Sazed had hope and faith.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Not anymore.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, you're excited for your chapter, I take it.
Okay, so
You got your Sunni doll.
I've got my Sunni pup. Who's here to join me for this chapter because this is a Tensoon chapter. So, we've been kind of wondering what happened to Tensoon since he left for the Kandra homeland. And we found out that, so when he went to the Kandra homeland, he told the second generation that he had broken his contract. And he had caused that, in that breach of his contract had caused the death of his master. And that he had released the secret, the Kandra secret of how he can be controlled by Mistborn.
Tensoon, what are you doing?
What are you doing? You should be punished.
So, Tensoon has been in a pit, essentially. So, his bones were taken away from him, and he's just a mass of muscle.
The
with
pit
no
of descension.
eyes, no ears, no, like, real senses as we think of them.
Not in like a Vin Diesel sort of way. Like, just like literally muscle. Like not like a big, but just literally like a
no
not
bones.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No bones. No bones, just muscle, just a big blob of nothing. Like, let's think of it like an octopus.
Or a jellyfish.
I love that he says he can't even like.
Octopus is better.
He can't even like form eyes because they would not be able to be supported.
Yeah, they would just get crushed under his weight if he turned the wrong way. So it's not really worth it to try to form eyes. And so each day he gets fed this like slop from above, and he gets like dumped water on him like every once in a while to like clean him.
Sounds like
And
my
apparently
ex-wife.
Kandra poop.
Yeah,
I
somehow.
mean, everybody poops.
Yeah.
Don't you go there. I remember that
So-
book.
Tensoon is kind of like being real down on himself because he's kind of like, I doomed us all, like I let the secret out. Now everyone's gonna start taking control of the Kandra, and we're never gonna be able to live our lives normally again. We're gonna be worse than slaves. And
I
he's
have a
just
question
generally
about this
like
part.
a little bit stressed out about that. But at the same time, you can kind of tell that he thinks he definitely thinks what he did was right.
Is this the
And
part where he mentions having the presence?
yes,
The blessing of
so
presence.
he has a blessing. He does mention that he has a blessing of presence, which allows him, which keeps him from going insane, essentially.
Oh, great.
Um,
That could be useful coming up. Like,
yeah,
The
I don't know. I'd love
punishment
to learn
thing.
more about that.
yeah. So he has a blessing of presence, which we're not exactly sure what the blessing is at this point in time, but we know that he has a blessing of presence, whatever that is, whatever that means, and that it helps keep him from going insane while he's in captivity. And during this chapter, he, some other Kandra show up, and he originally thinks that it's that they're going to feed him, and then the grate over top of him gets unlocked and opened up, and these hooks come out and pull his mass up out of the hole and dump him on the ground. And in the air, he smells acid, which we learn is what can kill a Kandra. Acid is what can kill a Kandra.
I think we already knew about that, though.
I'm not sure about that. We know that Tensoon had killed Sir, but I don't think we knew how.
Spoiler section. I have questions.
So we'll move on for right now. So he smells acid in the air, but before the acid touches him, he feels something hard hit him, and he realizes it's a skull. And then the acid hits him. So he quickly forms rudimentary tongue,
Everything you need to
lungs,
speak.
everything you need to speak, voice box, everything you need to speak, and he says judgment.
See, you guys were saying it's not like Vin Diesel, but he did say he was like the greatest bodybuilder the Conjures have ever seen.
So
Oy.
the other Kandra, so part of their law is that they have to allow him to ask for judgment.
Public trial.
Ask for a public trial. And so but it doesn't say how much time they have to give him to ask for a public trial. So they gave him the skull in order to allow him the opportunity, theoretically, to ask for a public trial, ask for judgment. But they weren't actually intending him to have the amount of time he needed to form a mouth and speaking
Yeah, they're
Parts.
basically trying to like.
parts.
It was the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. Like they.
Yeah.
Oh, technically, we gave him a skull. You know,
Technically, we gave him a phone, but doesn't mean the batteries had to be charged.
I like to think
Yeah.
only Tensoon could have actually got the word judgment out in time, like
Mhm.
because he's just so
Yeah.
quick at building.
Because he has spent so many years. He has spent over 700 years under contracts building bodies. And he spent the majority of that time out of the homeland on contracts. imitating people and
one dog.
and one dog.
Two dogs.
I was
Two
gonna say,
dogs. Two
technically
yeah.
two.
dogs.
2.5. You mix them up at the
So-
end.
They didn't realize that he was going to be able to form his body, the skull that quickly. And he asks for judgment, and the people who are there with him are like, do you really want judgment? That's not what you want to do. Do you really want to put yourself through this?
On the other hand, like, can you imagine putting a skull into a hole and then it starts talking? Like it grows
I'm
back
sure to
and starts
Kandra
talking
that's
to you.
probably not that epic.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
technically they didn't put it into a hole. They had already pulled his like flopping mass of muscle out of the hole. It was just like splayed on the ground.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was picturing like a little cubby. The grossest cubby in the world.
Yeah.
So he demands judgment. So they have to follow through with a public trial where we assume he intends to release the knowledge that he knows to the public, to the rest of the Kandra, because previously he had only told it to the second generation in a closed conference.
So immediately on the bat, we don't like the second generation.
I really like this chapter because we get our first sense of we get our first look at the Kandra homeland and kind of their hierarchical structure.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely get the sense of, we don't learn a whole lot in this chapter, but we do know that it is age-based, their structure.
Mm-hmm.
Is age-based. The first generation are the highest, then the second generation, then the third generation, and so on and so forth. It's very much based on how old you are. And the older generations, we have learned, don't go out on contracts very often.
It's just really interesting too because like obviously as humans we live in a society where like people do die, but imagine like if George Washington was still around, like how would that play into our politics today? You know, like it's just really fascinating to think about a society that has to deal with that.
Yeah. I do want to say two things. We also get to see their judicial system in a sense where, yeah, this is death, but it's a quick, not really painless death. But if you do the public trial and you're found guilty, you're going to be suffering for eternity. And your blessing of potency, that's not going to work in the long run.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks.
So, really the dilemma for Tensoon is a quick death, but then no one learns about what has happened on the outside versus a public trial where he has a chance of spending eternity in a pit.
Yep.
Slowly going insane.
And I also have I'm a little upset over how he views what he told Vin. Like his immediate thing is, oh, we're immediately going to be turned into automatons with no heart and soul. Does he think Vin would do that? He spent an entire almost a year with almost like an undisclosed amount of time, which we have argued about already. Does he think she's just gonna tell everybody?
I don't know if he was necessarily. I think this is his worst case scenario thinking. Because previously, when the Mistborn had learned how to take control of the Kandra, they did that. That was what had happened. And Tensoon was there when that happened. So he is genuinely and fairly worried that that's what's going to happen again.
Plus, he's thinking
Yeah.
on a longer time scale. Like, he's probably thinking, like, this might not happen now, might not happen in 100 years, but 300 years down the line, like, we could seriously have to worry about this.
Like
Also,
maybe she makes a note of it somewhere, and then it gets discovered, and or maybe the fact they are now controlling Koloss out there, and they realize, oh well, these people, they can get controlled, we can get controlled.
so it's not just necessarily that she knows and that she would do that. It's that if she told someone else and then suddenly they learn how to control Kandra and then they use it or they tell someone else who would use it.
I just wish there was a
That
line
way.
that said, "This is not what he thinks Finn would do."
Yeah, the most we get is something along the lines of, it still didn't feel like a mistake. Like, even though he's recognizing all these possibilities, I think there is that line.
Yeah.
I agree, because I always pictured them as being friends, and, like, he cared about her enough to tell her that in the moment. So he must have believed in that choice.
Okay, do you want to read the epigraph for chapter 2?
I don't feel like it's necessary.
I really like these epigraphs on reread, though.
Don't want me to do it. I didn't do the last one.
Swiggity,
I felt
and you guys
like-
can swap.
I felt like the previous one was necessary. I don't feel like this one is as necessary. So,
Oh, but these ones are all the cool ones.
What is it? What does it say? Holding the power did strange things to my mind. In mere moments, I became familiar with the power itself, its history, and the ways it might be used. Yet this knowledge was different from experience or the ability to use that power. For instance, I knew how to move a planet in the sky, but I didn't know where to place it so that it wouldn't be too close or too far from the sun.
Which, that's terrifying. Godlike power, but not the skill to use it.
So the fact that whoever holds the power can move a planet, you didn't think that was important at all to the story?
no,
think that's
not
kind
right
of a-
now. Not right now. It's not important.
We'll come back to
Okay,
it later.
but that's
if it
when we
is.
get the information. I think that's a pretty important piece of information to have.
I think Kay just doesn't want to read
Personal
the
opinion.
epigraphs every time,
I mean, that could be too. That's
Yeah.
also
Like-
legit.
more than anything else.
I also don't want to read the epigraphs every time. But it's also, I feel like, is not super important information because we learn about it later on when it's actually important.
Well, it's tough to comment on it too much in the non-spoiler section.
Spoiler-free section. Yeah.
Unless you want to be like, oh, I like how it's bringing up, I guess,
Well,
knowledge.
chapter 4 has it referenced, doesn't it? In which it talks
Well,
about.
it builds on that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but we can come back to it when we get there. But I will read the epigraph. It's up to your discretion from now on. In some ways, having such power was too overwhelming, I think. This is a power that could take a millennia to understand. Remaking the world would have been easy had one been familiar with the power. Yet I realized the danger inherent in my ignorance. Like a child suddenly given awesome strength, I could have pushed too hard and left the world a broken toy I could never repair. Even that writing style is very unique.
Like a child suddenly given awesome strength does kind of make me think of Ellen becoming a Mistborn. Like, just not necessarily a child, because he's very mature, but just like having access to all this strength. Like, right
Well,
off the
even
bat.
going to the point where Vin first learned about the metals, in which she burned iron immediately and pulled a nail straight at her.
Oh yeah, that's what I would do too.
And there's
Or
this
like-
other.
Or
Sorry.
like when she burned Duralumin for the first time with tin and got like overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Yep, that was a mistake.
There's this book called the Phase series, Fayz, where one of the characters is autistic and he basically has god level power and he tries to help people, but he ultimately kind of like tortures them. And this kind of rings a bit for that.
Oh, that sounds super interesting.
It's good. It's very dark though.
It sounds very dark.
Ellen charges into battle, reflecting on who he was and who Tindawil and Vin made him into. He uses pewter to kill a surprise Koloss. By the way, I'm going to skip a lot of the fighting scenes because there's no real need to get into them. He uses pewter to kill a surprise Koloss and calls his army. He felt better at using emotional allomancy than steel or iron. Ellen fights another, deflecting its sword, then cutting off its leg. His suit bled red as he cut off its head, and the Koloss began to go into a frenzy. Ellen ordered his men to line up, but they were slow, but admirably killed several hundred. Ellen soothes their fears and helps keep the line held. He tries to control some of them, the Koloss, but can't due to them being controlled by someone else. The Koloss begin to overwhelm them, but a speck in the sky begins to fall, and Ellen points to it, declaring it the first of his two armies. This is where it gets awesome.
When I read this the first time, the only thing I could think was, it's a bird! It's a plane! It's a little girl!
It's a 5', 19-year-old.
5 foot nothing, 20-year-old, you know?
I was thinking like there's already a bunch of specks in the eyes or in the sky. There's like a ash falling,
Yeah.
right?
I was thinking like, wait, isn't ash
That's a
falling
good
from the sky?
point.
But when reading that line, I instantly knew who it was and what was happening. Like,
I guess he's used to seeing his wife fly in the sky. Maybe he can recognize it.
I was so excited when that happened. I thought that was so cool. He's just like calling her. He's like, "Oh yeah, there's that first army, I promise." You know, singular person. Vin.
Yeah. And like, I almost want to remember when she first did Duralumin and Steel/Iron. We talked about maybe there was like a sonic boom or something because of how fast she was going. I almost wonder if you hear that and that causes Ellen to look up, and then you see streaking across the sky the black speck. I feel like that would work visually. Instead of just Ellen looking up and like, oh, that black speck of ash, that's my girl, that's my wife right there. You guys are
Well,
in
she
trouble.
would move very differently from just the falling ash.
oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
imagine it gets bigger.
I mean, I was just being a jerk because obviously, if a girl is flying in the sky, like you'll probably see that, but I don't know.
Anything else for that point of view?
I like how he gets all bloody on the Koloss that he decapitated. Just it reminds me of like when Vin smashed that dude's face in, and he was
The
all freaked out
head
about
cannon
it.
maneuver.
Yes. And now it's
The
like
head cannon.
he doesn't care. He's like gone full circle, taking charge.
Vin hits the ground with horseshoes orbiting her, taking out 3 Koloss quickly. She uses one to kill another and remarks how she, 19 and barely 5 foot, is doing this. Vin becomes the knife Ellen needs to protect his way of life. She kills a gigantic Koloss using Duralumin, pewter, and steel, and the Koloss become afraid of her. If this were a normal Koloss army, that would have won her the battle, but she was able to control one of the smaller ones and make it attack the others. Vin took control of more and more. She sees Ellen doing the same, and then they see a figure in black charging at them, a Steel Inquisitor. She remembers the last time she fought one, and the last time Kelsier did. And then she burns a whole new metal, Electrum. A metal that shows what she will do next. An internal ATM, in a way. Vin and the Inquisitor fight, but like any good gamer, Vin decides to not chip away at its health, but attack its weak spot, the linchpin spike. However, the Inquisitor downloaded hacks and now wears back armor to cover it. Something the Lord Ruler would have definitely not allowed. Now on the defensive, Vin leads the Inquisitor over to a hill where Ellen sees them and joins in. Ellen throws a coin and the Inquisitor tries to push on it, only to get sent flying back due to Ellen's allomantic strength. Vin moves in for the kill, but it dodges. Ellen tries to as well, but it somehow does so. It dodges at eye-blinking speed, faster than Duralumin enhanced pewter. The Inquisitor appears behind Ellen, preparing to stab him with a metal spike. Vin takes control of the Koloss, control of a Koloss last second, and it hits the Inquisitor across the face like a baseball bat, crushing its head. Ellen, now with no one else controlling them, burns Duralumin and Brass, taking control of the remaining thousands of Koloss and bringing the battle to an end. I can't tell if that's me stuttering or just how bad my handwriting is. Ellen had won.
Victory!
Fatality.
Big fight.
I gotta start at the very beginning. Vin with the horseshoes orbiting her, like how Kelsier did in his final battle. That is an awesome visual.
Well, and it's also like the same as like her coming into Luthadel at the end of the previous book.
So
The horseshoe.
we're saying she's probably still using that horseshoe trick, because I was thinking
Yeah.
that too.
Yes, but I'm saying like she's upgraded. Before it was just learning to catch and throw at a perfectly even pace. Now she's got them all flying about around her like aura or something. The little hailstorm that Kelsier was doing when he was fighting the Inquisitor.
Yeah, but I don't think she really used him to fight with, though, like Kelsier did. He used
No.
everything just to like attack and smack people with. She kind of got there, and that was really the last we heard about the horseshoes.
Yeah.
She uses them to attack a couple of the Koloss, and she uses one to actually grab a Koloss arm, bring it to her, and
Does she?
kill
Okay.
it. Yeah, she uses them, but it's just I feel like Vin would use this trick more in a defensive way. Kelsier was all about the offense. But I feel Vin would do this more as a defensive, push people away, or put them off balance and then kill them some other way. Kelsier would just 100% shoot it straight for the head.
Was Kelsier ever a misting?
No.
Weird. Because he was just
Anything.
really good with the steel. Like Vin is amazing with steel, but they always talked about how that was his like.
He was good with
Superpower.
steel and iron, though. He wasn't a master of one, he was a master of both. And that's what made him really good, is that he can push and pull on an object at the same time at different points.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was just what he had focused on. He had focused on steel and iron.
I was trying to see
in
if
his
maybe
training.
he was like a steel misting before, and that's why he was like super good with it.
No, it's just what he
Coin
focused
chat.
on after he snapped.
That makes a lot of sense for him, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and we
We've
can revisit that in a little more detail in the spoiler section if you want.
We've got a whole new metal, Electrum.
Hey,
Poor
Poor-
man's adium.
Yup.
it's one of the medals I
Which-
have tattooed.
Oh, that's cool. Why'd you pick Electrum?
Because the other one is gold, and because my band has a song called Electrum,
Mm.
and I like the idea of being able to like look at your future and your past. It's cool powers.
Nice. But I like how it's like a perfect alloy of ATM in a way, where ATM allows you to see another person's future. This one allows you to see yours instantly, not far off. It's this is what you are going to do in this second. And I wish we get to see more of what it, other than it negates ATM. I'm wondering how we'll get to see that.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I always picture like the same thing that you would see if you were burning ATM at the same time as somebody else. You would see that for yourself, like just a bunch of shadows coming out and doing like all different stuff, like
Mm.
potential
Yeah.
features. But in my imagination, they're always like made out of gold mist. I don't know why.
Oh, they're a different. I love that they're a different color.
Yeah, Because like, if
Oh,
you
that
look,
would be cool.
Electrum is like kind of gold colored, so I don't know. I think that'd be cool,
And ATM's more of a metal silver,
right?
sort of. That's cool. I like that.
You could have a scene where like all these shadows are fighting each other.
That would be fun. What metal now are we up to? Because we had the original 10, you had the 11th metal.
We are up to 14.
Sheesh. Original metal, and yet ATM, Duralumin, not ATM, aluminum, Duralumin. That's 12, 13. Yep, 14. Oh boy. Things were so much simpler in the old days.
Yeah.
Anything else for chapter 3? Other than it was awesome seeing them kick butt. And they killed an Inquisitor in the first chapter?
Yeah,
Killed
they
him right in the
really,
face.
they
Not in the first chapter, but in the
really
first few.
leveled up from book 1, because in book 1, like, the Inquisitors were like the big bad that are like, you can't kill them, like, they're like, you don't try to kill an Inquisitor, like, you just try to survive. And now it's like, oh yeah, I've killed like 4 or 5 of them, it's like not a big deal.
It's a chore.
Mhm.
My
Well,
favorite. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
After you. I needed to think on it.
I was gonna say my favorite part from this chapter, which was this massive, like the biggest Koloss probably on the battlefield, like the biggest one they've ever seen, comes up, and Vin. It doesn't have enough time. She's burning pewter and she sticks her sword into the ground to give it support because otherwise she would not be strong enough. And she like blocks this giant Koloss blade, and I just love picturing that. This giant thing like swinging like a tree at you, and you just like put your sword on the ground and block it, and then she pushes off of that up and punches, actually she kicks it right in the face and like lands on its chest, just like, yeah, what's up?
What are you gonna do now?
It's very anime.
This is my prison
It
now.
is. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, there's so much I love about this chapter. Seeing all the fight, seeing all the imagery, and you start off with a fight chapter. Not start off, but I'm saying all this is sort of in the beginning. But like book 1, you got very little. Book 2, you had Vin going up against a whole bunch of Allomancers, and she got help from a strange ally. Here, these are our characters who are at their most powerful we have ever seen them. Ellen controlling thousands of Koloss, Vin killing an Inquisitor. This is amazing.
That was a cool way to start it
Over
off.
9,000.
Level up.
And what other like series do you have like a couple going out and just slaying together?
The Godhammer series.
I would say
By-
the phase, actually.
I can't remember the author's name now. I have to look it up.
You're right, I'm stupid.
Percy Jackson.
No, that doesn't make you stupid.
I'm just kidding.
Percy Jackson. You have Percy and Annabeth
Bonnie and
going out.
Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. Anything else for 3? John, you have 4.
I do have 4. So, we shall begin this chapter as all chapters begin. This is actually what happened to Rashek, I believe. He pushed too hard. He tried to burn away the mists by moving the planet closer to the sun, but it moved too far, making the world far too hot for the people who inhabited it. The ash mounds were his solution to this. He had learned that moving a planet around required too much precision, so instead, he caused the mountains to erupt, spewing ash and smoke into the air. The thicker atmosphere made the world cooler and turned the sun red.
Wow. So there's an actual in-story reason for why everything is like this.
Right?
I get a lot of people, when I get them into the series after book 1, they'll start to question things like, why did the ash mounds? And it's like, did something happen to make the ash mounds? And I'm like, no, I think the ash mounds forms like, Titanic plate sliding, which is a little bit of a, yes, they did do that, but a god basically did that. So I'm always like, what are the ash mounds? Well, it's kind of like a volcano, I think.
Mm-hmm. So we launch this chapter with Sazed, who has become chief ambassador of the Final Empire.
Woo!
He studies one of his religious texts looking for answers to his struggles. Eventually, he decides it is internally inconsistent and therefore holds no value for him, and he discards it. This is a big deal for someone who once held belief in all of the hundreds of religions he had once carried as his personal specialty, his
And all
area
their
of greatest
contradictions.
knowledge and devotion. And it totally shows just how broken his spirits were at the death of Tindwyl, whom he's better off without.
What? Kay's gonna kill you, man.
I see that.
It's consistent.
I don't know why you keep poking the bear.
Kay hates me today. I'm sorry, Kay.
Excuse you. Excuse you.
I'm sorry the truth upsets you so.
Oh. Dude, you had an out. You had an out.
I
You
know,
gotta
but I
take
chose
it.
not to do it. I chose to further rouse the rage.
Okay, you can kill him when we finish the series. But until we find a replacement, you can't.
We could
Anyway,
do it
where
with
was
3 people.
I? What are you gonna do? 3 chapters a night?
No.
Anyway, so his whole self has been upended and turned inside out. Breeze appears to have recovered much of himself from his trauma. He asks Sazed about his sheets, and Sazed says that they are nothing of consequence, and brushes Breeze off. Then Breeze suggests that Sazed listen to the conversation next door with his Pharaoh-Chemi, where the king of the city is debating signing a treaty brought to him on behalf of Emperor Elend Venture. Sazed is still sidetracked on his religions, but he has this great little line about, that would be rather rude, don't you think? and they kind of go back and forth on, they're here to take over the city, like, what's a little bit of rudeness,
Well, it's also, Breeze has always been, we have the power, why not use it?
Right.
Gosh, it's a little bit like when you're at your friend's house and like the movie ends and then it's just the menu over and over. Like Sazed could listen in there, wouldn't be that big of a deal, but for whatever reason he's just too nervous to pick up the remote. I don't know, man.
That was very sage, Swiggity. Very sage.
Like, the guy's asleep, you could turn it off, but you don't know if it helps him sleep, so you're just stuck there in a perpetual loop.
Right, it's pointless courtesy. That's Sazed.
Too nice for your own good.
A walking contradiction.
So Sazed is still kind of too sidetracked to banter with Breeze about anything. He's still focusing on his religions in his mind, but he's also too self-conscious to actually take out his sheets and start going through them. They talk about how Sazed doesn't like his title because it implies that he's a citizen of the Final Empire rather than being part of the Terrace Nation, and he thinks about how he should be leading his people since the Inquisitors killed off the rest of the Synod, the Terrace leaders. But he just can't bring himself to do that either. He is just in this absolute funk of nothing.
Depression.
Yeah, he is beside himself. Sazed and Breeze debate a little bit about whether they did the right thing with the treaty, forcing them to sign it, and bullying Kingly Cal into signing it. And Breeze is like, it's for their own good. They're lucky that Ellen didn't just come in here when the king's nephew stormed an army of 2,000 Koloss on his city and just smashed this whole place to the ground. But Sazed is still skeptical. He points out how Breeze is a good man despite his, grim, nonchalant, sort of self-centered, forward personality that he sets forward.
I love that. He like just sees right through Breeze.
Yeah.
Breeze is like, how dare you point out my dark secret?
How dare you be blunt, straightforward?
um,
I've been trying to convince everyone I'm a narcissist.
Breeze points out that Sazed is distracted and he's not really being himself, and he's like, it still hurts, doesn't it? Just like kneel right to the point. And Sazed goes, wow, he is far too good at reading people. But then Breeze turns around and does something totally like not reading the room at all, and asks Sazed to try and convert him to one of those religions of his for old time's sake.
Well, he was trying to cheer Sazed up.
He was, but he didn't seem to realize that that's exactly part of the problem. But then again, I guess he didn't know what was on the sheets, so
Yeah.
Well,
I guess we'll cut him a little slack. But it was just like a non-characteristic misread.
Well, it could be argued that Sazed might not believe in these, and he's trying to find one for him to believe in, but he can still find one that he thinks Breeze might fit very well.
I mean, he could. Breeze even makes a crack about there must be one of those religions in there that worships wine. That would be a good one for me, which totally would.
Yeah.
Um,
Here's one where you worship yourself.
but even the thought of using ferochemy makes Sazed feel unworthy and empty, and he doesn't have the heart to point out that he stopped wearing his metal mines over a year ago, where he stores all of his memories of all of his knowledge and religions and everything else. Even though he's the only keeper that he knows to still be alive, he just refuses to use those skills.
Not just the only keeper, but the only ferochemist, too.
Well,
right? Or are we
they're
saying there's no
kind of
distinction?
sort of one and the same. Like, if I'm sure any ferochemist that was discovered by the terrorists would be press ganged into becoming a keeper.
Yeah,
True.
right now they are one and the same.
Okay. So he's like the last ferochemist. He is
Pretty much.
He is a dying breed.
Is this the
But,
same chapter? That's a catchphrase of mine. Is this the same chapter where Sazed talks about how he doesn't like being the ambassador
Yes.
Yes.
because
Yeah.
the terrorist people were never supposed to be anyone, and no one was supposed to be master over the terrorist people ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he feels like there's one left, and it's him, and he's just Ellen's servant again.
Yeah.
So I don't
Sazed-
know if you mentioned that. Sorry, I just want to bring it up.
I kind of glossed over it a little bit. But anyway, Sazed kind of gives Breeze the brush off in a sort of overbearing for Sazed way. Breeze says how Sazed was always the best of them because he believed in something. And he insisted that Sazed will come around. And then he thanks Sazed for helping him to recover from his trauma. Too many hymns. Breeze thanks Sazed for helping him recover from his own trauma. Sazed thinks about how he may have recovered if Tindwyl had survived like Orianne did, not really thinking about how if Tindwyl had lived, he would not have the trauma that plagues him now. It would be a totally different thing. And that's when the steward comes into the room with a newly signed treaty and scene.
Nice. I love the honesty in Sazed's internal monologue when Breeze says that. It's just very honest. Like, you know, I've had those thoughts that I hate myself for having of like just feeling like, oh, well, you might feel bad, but at least you still have this, you know. And it's like, that really cut me to the core. Like, I felt that. It's like, Sazed.
I liked, not to try to get off of the mental health issue that's in this, but I liked all the references that are in this chapter, where you've got Leakow City and the king is Yastis's uncle, and then you've also got the Kazi, It's the Kazi, correct? Yes. Where that was the religion that Sazed prayed to when they discovered Kammon's crew and how everybody was basically mutilated back in the Final Empire when the Inquisitors were hunting for Ben.
Is that the one he's going over on the sheets in the
Yep.
beginning of the chapter? Oh, that's awesome. I have more to say about that in like the spoiler section.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I think we're about ready to head that way.
I had one other note. Like, they're still swearing by the Lord Ruler's name. I like
Yeah.
that.
It's hard to. I kind of sympathize with that one. Like, it's hard to break a lifetime of indoctrination like that. Like, I
Mhm.
personally am atheist, but it's a colloquialism to say things like "Oh my God" or "Bless you" when somebody sneezes, or something like that. It's really, really hard to break yourself of that habit.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
kind of
orange,
get
but
that.
I always say like Stormfather.
Storms. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, also, I wonder with now that the revelation that Rashek was, keeping Ruin, this horrible force of death, locked up and at bay, like, is there maybe a belief or a way of thinking, like, maybe the Lord Ruler wasn't as bad as we made him out to be, considering what he was doing?
Oh, I would say he was still bad. He
Oh,
just
I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm 100% he should have been killed, and what he did was wrong and horrible. But I'm wondering now, in their eyes, and now that they know the secret,
No.
could they be using it with renewed vigor?
here to elaborate on
No.
that, Kay.
No, I don't think so. I think it is just something that is very much like John was saying, where it's just very ingrained in them to use the Lord Ruler's name as a swear, because that's what you've done for 30 plus years. So you're not like, it's gonna be hard to break it within like a year or two. And I also don't think they, like, maybe they'll think like, oh, so like I guess he was doing what he thought was right, but that still doesn't make the things that he did okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was still a horrible person,
Yeah.
and he still did horrible things, even though he had good intentions in a little bit, like, in a way, with like trying to keep Ruin in, like, but he still caused a lot of suffering, and that is still not okay.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. Well, is there anything? Sorry.
I was just adding on to that. It's like it's a weird situation that like we as people have never truly been in, of having like our god president be assassinated, and like because I can imagine like maybe somebody at one point was like, "Oh, let's start saying Lord Venture instead," and Ellen just being like, "No,
No.
I'm not cool with that. That is weird."
No. Yeah. I mean, that's probably how Vin felt when they were all like, shoot, what were they calling her?
Yeah, when
Lady Air.
Lady Air
In,
and Holy First Witness
what's that book
and all
called?
that. Kelsey would have loved it, though.
Yeah. He'd have been all
There's
about
a
that.
little drama queen. So, like,
A little? I think it was Lelouch levels of drama.
He would have been like asking them to add on stuff.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, maybe Magnificent Lord Mistborn.
Yeah. The stupendously magnificent Lord Mistborn. Well, is there anything else we would like to say, spoiler free, about these first 4 chapters?
I just love the Sazed arc in this book. I feel for it. Makes me sad.
Felt like this was a very good hook for what has happened. You get 2 fight chapters. Well, one's really the setup to the battle. The other one establishes, here's this thing with Tensoon that you never thought was going to be its whole part of the story. And then you've also got here's going on with our other characters. So we do see here are 3 groups of characters right now. And here's what they're all up to.
Surprisingly, not very much Vin, though, huh?
No, just the
Not
one
yet.
fight. Can't wait to get into it more, though.
We'll get to her brooding and pontificating later.
Okay, then. Well, next time we're going to be covering the next 4 chapters of part 1. So chapters 5 through 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, that's right. But it's going to be time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely we will talk about everything and anything. But if you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads that are still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we must part, then my name is Reader, and I've been joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Dandos the Oil Swan.
John,
I am human.
and last but not least, Kay.
Have a good one.
Don't forget, there's always another connection. Okay. Yep, that's staying in. We're gonna keep rolling.
Welcome to season
keep
3.
rolling.
All new
We're gonna keep rolling.
soundboards.
Chapter 1. Oh boy. We really need to get together more often, or else this is just what happens. Any spoilery notes for Chapter 1? I mean, we start off knowing that, Sazed is the one who writes these things, which is really obvious in hindsight.
Yep. I am
It reads a lot.
unfortunately the hero of ages.
So, that's why I'm trying to avoid, this sounds an awful lot like somebody with a higher education.
Well, it's why I was like, Reader, in my head, I was like, Reader, why the hell are you talking about the writing and the way that it's written? Shut
I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
Close your stinking mouth, sir.
I could see the line you were trying to walk there. And I was
I'm
like,
trying to walk.
I'm not going to mention it.
I could feel Kay glaring at me.
Oh, especially when it says I think. Like, that is, once you had
Yes,
that
or
pointed
I
out to you,
believe, or
it's just,
Yeah.
okay, that stays it.
Like, if you pay attention to the way that it's written, you can definitely tell that it says it.
Inherent in my ignorance, I don't see Vin writing that.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, true. When I first read this, I thought this was from maybe AT or like somebody like in the past. I didn't think this was going to be something written like now based off of things that have happened at the end of the book. So I never in a million years thought this was Sazed. First time.
That would be a cool theory if, it didn't immediately retcon it by saying, this is what happened with Rashek.
That just made me more confused. Honestly. I was like,
Wow, this person has time travel abilities.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the shards or something. But
Which it was, but also not.
It was 2 of the shards.
right?
Ah, shoot, I forgot to bring up. I like the detail that only noblemen and lords get surnames. And Ellen
Yeah.
says to the one guy, "You can pick your surname later." And if you think about it, only the lords have ever had last names.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because they're
it's
the only ones who need to trace their lineage.
Yeah, but I've never thought about it, and I like that little detail
I
of
never
it.
thought about that until right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, the lords are the only ones who need to trace their lineage, so they're the only ones who have surnames. There's no reason for a peasant to have a surname. Like, what do you need to trace your lineage for? You're just a peasant. Like,
You're just a meaningless peasant.
Well,
The
my
past
name's
was
Reader
awesome.
Warrior, all one word. I'll have to think of a surname later.
What else in chapter 1?
That's it for me in chapter 1. The big thing was Sazed.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's just Ellen coming to town. Since we're talking about
Adventures coming.
so we're talking about all Cosmere stuff, I think when he shows up and he's like talking to the people, he's like, the Koloss are coming. It just really reminded me of like the time of the desolations is at hand.
yeah.
And what Kay was saying about like we start off with a POV different thing, like definitely got it in like Rhythm of War. I don't think we're gonna get it in book 5.
what do you mean?
Because book 5 he said is we're gonna immediately know that Hoyd realized he was tricked. So I'm guessing that's gonna be how that book starts. And considering how much of that book is here's the 10-day timeline we need to squeeze into one book, which is somehow so little days, but so much we need to do. I don't think any of it's going to be spared on here's a random character we're going to jump to that showcases the army of Alethi.
But
We shall see.
well, we're gonna see it in well, not necessarily a random character per se. Like, the prologue is, like,
Or the interludes, right? The
Well, I'm
interludes are
guessing
always
the
just
prologue
like,
is going to be Hoyd.
no, the prologue's not Hoyd.
oh,
Because
I
the
know who
prologue
the
is
prologue is.
I know who the prologue is as well.
Shh.
But the prologue, I'm just saying this now because you already know this.
Fatrin.
All of the prologues are the night of Gabler's death.
True, dang it. Ah, you got me there.
So, like, the prologue's not going to be Hoyd.
Okay. You
That's
win
all
this
I'm
one,
saying.
Kay.
That's
I
all
have
I'm going to say.
I have a weird
So-
prediction. I think at the end of this book of Stormlight 5, I don't know why we're on Stormlight 5. We always are.
We always seem to get here.
It's always Stormlight.
Stormlight starts with a prelude to the Stormlight Archives. I think it's going to end with Coda. I think book 5 is going to end with Coda. That's going to be like the epilogue. So it's really specific,
Coda.
but it's a musical term, which means where you
Ah.
go to a certain point and you go back to the beginning and you go up to that point and then you go past it. So it's like basically, okay, play that section again, and then when you get here, move on.
I could see that.
Because he's clearly got some musical themes happening with the way he's wording it.
Like that, but I don't know if that will be the case. I think that would be cool.
I just don't know if Brandon's musician
Because it's like
savvy.
a soft. I think he was talking about it in a WAB at some point that he wanted to mirror the beginning, like how it says prelude with the end of being like outro or something. So this is like I took that and I was like, oh well, this is kind
You
of like a
you
midpoint,
made it your own.
right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's get back to Hero of Ages.
Oh yeah, that would make sense with like, yeah, okay. Yep.
Anything
continue.
else for chapter 1?
No, but I do like in chapter 2, I like seeing the Kandra a lot and just getting to like learn more about the Kandra because like so we know, having read this, we know that that Tansoon is a 3rd generation Kandra. I don't know if we learn
He says
that.
it.
Oh, he
he
does say
says
it in
he's
that
third.
chapter?
He says he's a 3rd generation.
He's a 3rd generation, which, like, we know from reading the books, are very much, like, not liked. So, like,
Because
I
they're
like
the millennials.
They're the out there generation, the troublemakers, if you will.
Mm.
And so
Because that's all you have to think about. You just have to think the first generation are the forgotten generation, the second generation are the baby boomers. Which they're like, okay, we did our work. We're not going to leave this place anymore. We're going to sit on our laurels, and we want everything to be our way.
would that mean Gen 5 is Gen Z?
They're just depressed all the time, looking up at the red sun. They're looking at the mist, and they're like, yeah, bring it on. Let's go,
Yeah.
ruin.
Fifth generation, or is it seventh generation? That's the like chaotic ones that were raised by the third generation.
Possibly, I don't
I think
remember.
it's seventh generation because I think Melon is seventh generation.
I thought Melon was third.
No, Melon is
No,
not
she's
third generation.
definitely
because-
much younger than that.
Okay, I'll check.
She was raised by Tensoon. I think she's seventh.
I am checking. 7th, yep.
Why'd you ever doubt me?
I know. I love that all the artwork on the Coppermind is of her in Era 2. Nothing in Era 1.
Alright, I got a question.
Mostly when she shows up. Okay, yes.
Sure.
Was there a mention of the spikes?
Yes. So we've got the...
The conjure spikes?
No. But
Well, there's
the
the
only mention is of the
blessing of
The
is of
blessings.
the blessings, but we don't know what the blessings are, and there's no mention of spikes.
I actually don't. I personally don't know what the blessing is. Like, is that the thing we still
That's
don't know?
the spikes. That's the spikes.
Wait, so the spikes are the blessings?
Yes.
Yes. So you know how Koloss are all pewter spikes, and that's what makes them grow big and be strong?
Okay.
That's basically what happens with the conjures. They have 4 different ones,
They have 2 spikes.
but of 4 different
Oh.
varieties.
Oh, yes, correct.
So each gets 2, but there's 4 you could potentially have.
Yes, but typically you only get 1 blessing. Tensoon is special because he also took Orsiers.
You each get 1 blessing. Each blessing is a pair of spikes.
Mhm.
Correct.
And there are 4 different blessings
Yes.
that are possible.
Tensoon was made with the Blessing of Presence, which is basically copper clouds and mental fortitude.
I'm wondering if, like, the reason they didn't bring up the spikes now is because that. I mean, you can form like a skull in time if you're getting acided on you, but if somebody rips out your spike, that's like a 2-second deal. Right?
Yeah. But I would think the Kandra would have, like, that's a taboo. Almost
Yeah,
in a
Oh, I
sense.
like that.
Because then you're not a Kandra anymore. If your spike is taken out, you are no longer a Kandra.
And it's tied specifically to their mass suicide button, so...
Yeah.
Right. It probably has more implications. Like, I guess you could also argue it's like the way we execute people has always been try to be in the most humane way or whatever. So I could totally see how, like, if their views on it are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the spikes that Tensoon has are copper spikes because they are for mental fortitude. The ones that Orser had are iron spikes, which are also, I think that the Koloss don't have pewter spikes, they have iron spikes.
Okay.
Because iron is the one that steals human strength.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just associating pewter with strength.
Yeah, you're good. So
Because he gets the Blessing of Strength or something.
yeah, the blessing of I don't remember what it is. What's it called?
Stability?
Maybe.
Or is it potency?
You guys know all this stuff.
This one's zinc. Nope.
blessing of stability.
Stability.
Stability. There's the blessing of awareness, which is where you have the senses, where you have enhanced senses, and there's the blessing of potency, which I think is emotional fortitude.
Potency is iron spikes that give Kandra strength like an Allomancer burning pewter.
I was incorrect. So potency is...
Wait, can we get that on
strength.
Swiggity, you're recording that, right? We can lord this over her for eternity.
I was there. 11:13 p.m.
So
I want that clip.
Stability is zinc, which
Emotional
would be emotional fortitude.
Yes. I know because Coppermind.
Yeah,
See, I was just using my own mind and this handy dandy little chart in the back of my book.
That's cheating. Anything else for 2 then? Since we seem to have focused a lot on that, other than the fact like the first generation, second generation, third, and we kind of know a little bit more about them, but we don't have to go into that yet.
We can save it for next time, I guess, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of Kandra stuff to cover.
Yeah.
Oh,
anything? Anything for chapter 3? So we've got
mostly just like fighting, but obviously we can point out the fact that the Inquisitor is being controlled by Ruin, who is also controlling the Koloss.
Well, I think the Koloss are controlled by the Inquisitor, and the Inquisitor is being controlled by Ruin.
Right, that's what she was saying.
Yeah.
I thought she was saying that Ruin was controlling both. Sorry.
Well,
that's how I heard it.
Well,
controlling the Koloss through the Inquisitor, kind of.
Yeah. And Ruin is letting Finn and Ellen take control of the Koloss.
Mm-hmm. Because so they can search for the ATM.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wants them to find it.
When I'll wait on the when a Koloss is created, they have the skin attached to the spikes, right? Or is the 4 spikes?
Yes.
Where did the original skins come from?
You know,
because
I don't think they ever talk about that.
Because assuming it's like a blanket with spikes on all 4, right? It's like a square blanket with spikes on all 4 corners, and that's the skin that stretches. But like, where did the original skins come from?
I would guess that they were probably created when the Lord Ruler originally created Koloss, because he created those during the time when he held the power at the Well of Ascension, was when he created Koloss.
It was. It was just, I was thinking about it. And the skin, blue skin.
So, that's my guess.
Oh god, I have a quote for you here. Vin rushed ahead, cutting him off just as he reached the tent with the wounded human. She said wearily, "What are you doing?" He ignored her, slamming the dead Koloss down on the ground. Now, finally, human ripped the skin off the corpse. It came off easily. This was one of the smaller Koloss whose skin hung in folds. So apparently they pulled the skin off the dead Kolosses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But Reader was saying, where did those original skins come from? It's the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg?
But like, no, because assuming he made the Koloss, and I don't think, did he make them when he was ascended?
Yes.
Okay, then that means there's a limited amount of skins at all times.
Maybe he knows how to make more.
But then what are they made of?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's just their skin. I think it's because they come from people. I think it's the people's skin. and like as they are transformed, it just kind of transforms.
I don't see
But, like,
anything on Coppermind about this.
when they're young, it's all the skin is all flabby and loose, and like as they grow bigger, it stretches over them. So it's not like it's their normal skin that tears up as they grow bigger. It's like a blanket is put over them, and then as they grow bigger, they fit into it, and then they get bigger, and it rips. I added it to our Words of Brandon section. Of
I don't know.
things
Maybe
somebody-
this skin metabolizes quicker than the body. I don't know. Like that is a
It's just I was reading. I was
genuinely
like,
great
wait a
question.
second. I have the headcanon that the
So what it sounds like people are saying is they think that it comes from like the skins of the human,
but then that doesn't make sense.
like the people, that they like become like in the process of turning them into Koloss, they like I don't know, that's what
That doesn't make sense. Okay. I feel like that's
Hmm.
something we have to ask Brandon.
Oh, it comes from Ayamiya. They have blue skin there, right?
Yes.
It's the Blues Brothers.
Well, it's the Amians. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
yeah.
would not have known that.
He is our Rosharan expert.
Ish.
Okay, so in chapter 3 we see an Inquisitor, right? But it's not one that Vin recognizes. So that makes me think, is that a reference to the prologue when Marsh is making new Inquisitors?
Ooh. Like it's... They think of it in the movie format, it's the one that was underneath. Like it's the same
Yeah.
actor.
And
I
then you
kinda like
see
that.
and then you know like, oh, that's what that was.
Oh, I like that. Nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
And then Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I have a slight headcanon that first Koloss Vin takes control of, that's human.
No evidence, you just like that. You like
Yeah.
that? I like that too. I feel like John's like, no, dude, you gotta have something to back that up.
Sorry, I'm still looking into the Koloss skin thing. Somebody on Reddit was like, I have this image in my mind of the Lord Ruler sitting in his basement knitting new skins for baby Koloss. Which is kind of funny.
I'll ask it on the actual 17th shard. But honestly, I kind of just want to post it. Wait, no, he's not doing Reddit anymore. Where do you ask Wobbs now? Shoot.
You have to go to signings.
Oh, is
You
he
kind of
really
go to
not
Dragonsteel
answering?
Con.
Is he really not answering anything on Reddit anymore?
No, last time I heard from him was on one of his podcast things, and he says he's with Reddit burning and crashing. He's thinking about going to someplace else, and he also joked that I tend to use, if I get a question, if I get lost or something, I'll go to the Copper Mines and check it instead of my own notes.
Oh wow.
That is hilarious.
I mean, that's what everyone else is
so
going to be
funny.
using. Who
It's
put
really
that?
funny.
Who put the little flak jacket on them? What they started doing that? I guess maybe. So I'm talking about the Inquisitor. He has like covering his
Oh.
back spike like
Oh.
a metal like jacket. Was that?
That has to be something like Marsh came up with, because he showed Vin their weakness when they were fighting the Lord Ruler.
Well, that's got to be something that Ruin came up with. I think. I think that Ruin was the one who came up with it, since and
So
decided to implement it.
we never really learned. It's just like a thing that they started doing. Now that they're not under the Lord Ruler.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
we kind of at this point, especially like, and I guess this is just kind of the assumption that was made, is that they just decided to start doing it because that's their one weakness.
Mhm.
So, like, they're gonna protect their one weakness. Their one
Especially
main
now that the
weakness.
boss says they can't do it.
Yeah.
I love that the only other way to kill them is to just like either
Decapitate them.
decapitate or completely crush their head.
Zombie rules.
Zombie rules. Great.
Electrum, that's one of the actual 16, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It is the
Not one
alloy
of-
of gold.
It's not one of the weird ones.
No, the only ones that are the weird ones are ATM and Mal-ATM.
Yeah. I'm not ready to get into that. That's the last of my notes for 3.
Okay.
Anything for 4? Other than poor Sazed.
Poor Sazed, honestly. I just feel bad for him.
Mm-hmm. I like that he promises to never teach another religion. Even when he becomes God, does he actually teach religions? Does he even teach his own?
Nope, and he specifically tells them not to worship him.
And I love that.
But I mean, I guess technically he teaches the religions because he does. Like in his book, he leaves all of his religions.
See, is that teaching religion or is that allowing you to learn one? Because a teacher can.
I don't know. That's a great question.
Because a teacher can leave a textbook on a desk and at the end of the year give you a quiz, and that's not really teaching. You would have
Wow,
to
that
teach
teacher
yourself.
would be a huge asshole.
Yeah.
Like, that teacher sucks, man.
That
Or
sounds
that
like
teacher
going
can
to
get up and
college
give a
during the
lecture.
pandemic.
I knew that as well, Swiggity. I was like, that sounds like a college class.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much been my experience. So, like, I kind of like that he doesn't ever teach. And the Kazi, they are the religion that Sazed uses to fix all the bodies because they are experienced with anatomy.
That is kind of interesting because like he says he's going to get better about that. I don't know. It reminds me like the very end of it when he's like, oh, I tried to fix them, but turns out bringing their bodies back doesn't actually bring their souls back to the bodies.
Because that's... Oh, you're referring to Vin and Ellen at the end.
Right.
Well, it's like... How well do you know Full Metal Alchemist?
Yep, I like Full Metal Alchemist.
No, the
I've
premise.
watched all of it and I've read all of it.
Like,
So
the
far,
body can be completely fixed, but if the spirit isn't there, it's just the body. I mean, that's what people who are brain dead are like, right? Nothing's in there.
Meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can't
It's just
get to that.
I don't have any connection to make about that. It's just when you said that it reminded me of like I like that they're kind of if that's like the religion that he used for that. That's interesting that they seeded it so early on, and then it's like one of the last things in the book.
Yeah. And I'm kind of upset we glossed over a lot of Breeze's PTSD just so we could have Breeze be as amazing as he is, Breeze.
Well, it's been a year as well. Like,
Yeah, but we're seeing Sazed still mourning, and I like the reasoning he is. You had somebody to help you. You have your loved one. I do not. And I
Yeah.
like that. But also, like, I do kind of wish we saw Breeze struggling with his confidence and, like, trying to maybe prove that he can be brave.
I think if we had more Breeze POVs, we would see that, but we don't.
Maybe a comment like, you volunteered to go on this, or something along that. You volunteered to come with us to this peace signing, or...
It is kind of a little, I don't know. It's like at the end of the second one, you're like, wow, Breeze is like really affected by that. Like, I wonder what how that's going to pan out. And then it essentially is kind of like, oh, he's recovered. He's back to being bruised. The time skip is interesting. Like, I love a time skip. Again, I'm saying it probably the 5,000th time. I love a good time skip. But this one's weird because you have, like, Breeze reverts back. Sazed is at, like, the end of a long... Not the end, but he's just on a long train of misery. Again, I don't really remember what Vin's deal is, so I'm not going to bring her up. But
Vin's confident now.
But it's the same thing with Ellen. Like, so many people go through changes, and like Breeze, you're right. It's weird that he just kind of reverts back.
Maybe that shows everybody else has moved forward. Maybe Breeze was so far put back that this is just where he is now.
Be interesting to pay attention to it throughout the rest of the book and see, like, maybe he actually did change, and we just don't get that right now. He's just like acting like everything's fine.
John, as the one who does not necessarily like this book, do you have any complaints in these 4 chapters?
Not as of the...
Getting
Not
the
yet.
nod of now?
Yes, thank you. That's what I was going for.
And that's what I was struggling with. So I'm like, we got these 3 great viewpoints, and I'm like, what about Spook?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was,
it's not
I was
until-
looking through that. Yeah, it's not until part 2. that
Part
we
2,
get to-
yeah, that's where it starts getting troublesome for me.
That we get to Spook is part 2.
That one chapter about Spook's backstory, that breaks my heart every time.
I don't
Well,
remember it.
Okay.
we'll get to it. I call dibs.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we would like to talk about? So far, John's still giving it a thumbs up. That's going to be our rating system for this book.
Well, I mean, of course, the book overall gets a thumbs up. It's still a Sanderson novel. It's still Mistborn. Like, it's still great. It's just, in my opinion, probably his least effective novel, all on its lonesome.
I can't wait
Yeah.
till we finish Stormlight Archive and see how you react to that one.
Oh my god. I want all the chapters. Give me all the chapters. I'll just do that one all by myself.
Okay, let's go ahead and wrap up then.
And that's just about going to cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time.
Goodbye,
Bye.
son of Tenebast.
Bye. Bye.
And then the menus would loop all night
Oh no.
long. If I hear Hakuna Matata again, there's a good chance I may snap.
Like the first 30 seconds of Hakuna
So
Matata.
come on in and
Like
sing
you're stuck
Yeah,
over at a
with
friend's
your
house. Oh
Disney
no.
songs.
It was the worst.
Oh my gosh,
See,
I do
I
remember
have-
those Disney Channel sing-alongs.
I don't have DVDs. I have the original VHS ones, where you have like go to Disneyland or like all go to the beach, where they have like the mascots actually taking kids places. And then
And
I'll
if you
sing
don't
in there.
stop that tape at the end, is there that obnoxious tone that sometimes happens at the end of VHS tapes?
you would have to like. I would have to know what tone you're referring to. I was just rewatching the Campfire one. the
It
other
goes
day.
something like this.
My Discord didn't cut
No.
that out. Discord, what are you doing? Wow.
And then sometimes it would go to static, and then it would stop, and
Mhm.
depending on your VHS player, it might automatically rewind
Yeah.
and start the video again.
Well, mine doesn't
Oh.
restart. It rewinds and then it ejects.
Oh, that's okay.
It's clever.
Do we? Anybody else have anything to say before we get on track?
Vintage technology.
Have we all been there where we're like
Oh.
at a friend's house or something? They've fallen asleep. You don't know, for whatever reason, you're too young to like be confident in working somebody else's TV, and the menu is just on like for a movie, like John was saying. Because I've totally been in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed with a friend my entire senior year. Well, 3 days a week for my entire senior year. I would stay at his place because my family moved to a new town, and it was like the weekend before senior year started. So in order to go to the same school, I would stay with him 3 days a week. Well, he watched videos to go to sleep, and sometimes that would happen. And he set it up so that there was a feed from the DVD player over to the TV that he set up over by my bed for me, which was all well and good. But I'll tell you, I've seen the American president approximately 318 times, and it wasn't until I graduated high school that I knew that the chick in that movie was a redhead. I always thought she was blonde because I never watched it. I only listened to it.
That's really funny. But no,
was
I
great.
didn't have that experience, Swiggity, because I generally the only person's house I would sleep over at growing up was my neighbor's house, who are also like my best friends, and so I knew how to work all of their stuff. And they knew how to work all of our stuff because we would just spend so much time at each other's houses because they lived literally across the street. Like, we knew the passcode to their house and they had like a key to our house, so like
But like that's what it is. Like that's the specific like thing about this situation is that it would be so easy to just turn the volume down or turn the TV off or do anything, but because you're at a friend's house and you're the guest, like for whatever reason, like I would just, take it.
You
Like,
don't
just
want to
do
touch
it.
anything. You don't want to mess anything.
Why are we
Yeah.
like this?
maybe it's also the fact that I would just go, how do I work this?
Yeah. Kate, that does not surprise me about you. You seem like
you're
the
in-
type of person who'd be like, I'm not dealing with this.
Whenever you use a different shower than your own, you're like, how does this thing work?
Oh yeah, you have to figure out how that particular knob goes.
It is so bad because I am so blind without my glasses on. I can literally only see like maybe 6 inches in front of my face without my glasses on. Like, I'm so blind. So like if I am in a new shower, I specifically have to like put my wear my glasses, look in the shower, and be like, how does this work? Before I take my glasses off and actually get in the shower to like turn
Take
it
a
on,
magnifying
try to
glass.
work it.
Do you guys ever shower with glasses on?
No,
No.
because they could steam up.
It's
Mhm.
it's doable for like the first 5 or 10 minutes though.
No, it's doable for like the first. How hot are your showers, Swiggity? I'm
It's
so
Swiggity's-
sorry.
It's trippy.
Swiggity's
it's
taking
really
cold
trippy.
showers.
You're clearly taking cold
I
showers
was-
because
I was taking cold
it's only
showers for a while.
doable for like the first like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, how
and
hot
then
are your
glasses-
showers?
Well, it's
Very.
on the warm side, and the room steams up, and then the glasses. I have this thing where if I open the dishwasher and it's only just finished, boom, glasses turn white.
My glasses
I've gone
have
outside. I've gone outside and just go, I'm blind now.
a thin coating of oil from my machinist job. So, being Dandos the oil sworn, they don't fog up.
That was awesome.
I've been waiting for a
Okay,
reason to come.
You are no longer
for
Swiggity.
so
You are now
long.
Dandos, the oil sworn. Swiggity is now dead.
When you open the oven as well, like if you open the oven and your face is like too close, like like
Yeah.
glasses just fog up. You can't see anything.
Yeah. Actually, it happens to me when I'm running a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is great. Now I'm going fast and I can't see.
I'm running through a forest. I close my eyes. What are you doing running through a forest and closing your eyes?
My friend Jevin used to. I'm sorry, we need to record the show. But my friend Jevin would ride his bike and close his eyes when he started going really fast. He's like, I like the way it feels. And then one day he like hit a car.
And now he always closes his eyes.
Rest in
Fun fact, I
peace.
also once ran into a car, the back of a parked car, when I was riding my bike because I wasn't paying attention to
That's
where I
what it
was
was.
going. This was also the same day. This was in elementary school. This was the same day I passed my bike safety test at elementary school that allowed me to ride my bike to school. I
Well.
proceeded to then go home, take my helmet off, and run into the back of a parked car and chip my front teeth.
Ooh.
Same day.
I
That's
also ran
awesome.
into a car and fell on the ground. I think I was just walking though. I was walking on like the edge of a curb. I avoided falling to the left, but then I fell to the right, hit a car, and then like I was torn up on the side, and I just continued walking to gym. So I'm standing there waiting for gym class. Like, Matthew, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you should go see the nurse. I'm fine. No, you're gonna go see a nurse because you've got blood pouring down your right leg. I'm like, no, it's fine.
It's fine. I'll keep. That's like a similar pressure of like not wanting to change the DVD menu. I'll just keep
Sure,
bleeding.
it's bleeding out DVD menu. Okay, are we all ready to go?